The notification popped up
Argentinos,
on Javier
buenas
Milei's phone at
noches.
6:47 a.m.
Conforme a
January
lo que
1st,
dicta nuestra Constitución
2026,
Nacional,
New
esta
Year's
noche
Day.
estaremos enviando el
While
proyecto de
most world
presupuesto
leaders
de
were sleeping off champagne
2026 al
hangovers,
Congreso de la Nación
Argentina's
para
president
su
was already awake,
evaluación.
scrolling through
Este
international
presupuesto
news.
sostiene,
And there it
al igual
was,
que el presupuesto
MoneyWeek's
enviado el
reader
año
poll
pasado,
results.
el
Second
equilibrio
most
fiscal.
influential world leader of
Hoy,
2025.
el futuro
right
de la
behind
Argentina
Donald
depende
Trump,
fundamentalmente
ahead
de
of
una
Modi,
sola
ahead of
cosa:
Xi, ahead
que
of
el
everyone
pueblo
except
y la
his friend in
política se
Washington.
comprometan con el
Milei
orden
stared at the
fiscal.
screen for a moment.
Si
Then he did
respetamos
something
el equilibrio
characteristic.
fiscal,
He
si
didn't call
logramos
his
ese
press team.
consenso
He
básico,
didn't draft a formal
tenemos
statement.
asegurado un crecimiento
He opened X
inimaginable
and
luego
typed
de
two
décadas
words,
de estancamiento.
Fenomeno burial.
Si
To
fallamos,
understand why those two
volveremos a
words
caer
matter,
en el
you
pozo
need
de
to
la
know their
inflación
history.
descontrolada
When
y la
Milei
destrucción
first
de
entered
toda
politics in
expectativa sobre el
2021,
país.
the establishment
En este
dismissed him as
sentido,
a
el
neighborhood
presupuesto
phenomenon,
nacional no es un
a
mero
local
proyecto de
curiosity
ley,
who would never amount
es
to
la
anything
ratificación
beyond
de
Buenos
nuestro
Aires street
compromiso
corners.
inquebrantable
The
con
phrase was
sacar
meant
al
to
país
diminish him,
adelante.
to keep him in his place,
El
to
equilibrio
remind him he was
fiscal es
an
la piedra
outsider
angular de
who didn't
nuestro plan de
belong.
gobierno
Now, 5 years
y es
later,
un principio
British
no
media was calling
negociable
him one of the
que
world's
le hemos
most
planteado a la
important leaders.
sociedad desde el comienzo de
The
nuestra
neighborhood
gestión.
phenomenon had gone global.
Ningún país del mundo
The
puede
recognition
funcionar
didn't come from just
correctamente
one
sin un presupuesto
publication.
equilibrado.
It was a British
Por eso,
trifecta.
los políticos
The
en todo el
Telegraph,
mundo
that
encuentran
bastion of
consensos y
conservative
acuerdos
thought,
para
had named him in
sancionar
their
la
top
ley de
3.
leyes.
The Economist, which had
Entendemos
once
que el
called him
equilibrio fiscal
dangerously
parezca un mero
unhinged,
capricho,
now listed him
pero
among
no es ni más ni
2025's
menos
most
que la
consequential
solución
leaders.
definitiva a los problemas
And
que
MoneyWeek's
azotan
readers,
desde hace
investors,
décadas a la
traders,
Argentina.
people who put their money where
Sin
their
embargo,
mouth is,
esta
had voted
solución
him
tiene
number
plazos
2
de
in the
desarrollos
world.
largos, como
But
cualquier
here's what makes
solución
this story
verdadera.
remarkable.
En ese
Milei
recorrido,
shouldn't be on
los
any of
éxitos
these
que
lists.
nuestro programa
Not by
tuvo y
conventional
sigue
metrics.
teniendo son
Argentina
parecidos
isn't a
a los
superpower.
cimientos en la
It doesn't have
construcción
nuclear
de un
weapons.
edificio.
It doesn't control
Son el
vital
primer
shipping
paso
lanes or
necesario
massive
para
oil
desarrollar
reserves.
la obra.
Its military
Son
is
sus
smaller than
componentes
Colombia's.
esenciales,
Its
dado
economy
que
is
sin los
smaller than
cimientos
Mexico's.
el edificio
By every
colapsa.
traditional measure of global influence,
Nosotros
Argentina's
celebramos estos
president
éxitos
shouldn't
porque
matter to
sabemos la
British readers at
importancia
all.
que tienen.
Yet there he
Celebramos
was.
la baja sostenida de la
Number 2,
inflación,
ahead
la
of the
baja de
leaders
la
of China,
pobreza,
India,
la baja de los
France, Germany,
impuestos
Britain
y la
itself.
salida del cepo como
How would a
grandes logros
libertarian
porque
economist with wild
efectivamente
hair who
lo
talks to
son.
his dead dog through
Pero
mediums
también es
become the
cierto que
world's
durante
second most
estos 20
influential
largos
leader,
años
according to British
muchísimos
media?
argentinos lo
The
han
answer
perdido
lies in
todo
what the
y
Telegraph's
les ha ido cada vez
analysts
peor.
specifically praised.
Por eso quiero
Progress at
decirles
turning
a
around
todos
the
los
fortunes of
argentinos,
Argentina's
más
economy
allá del
through
éxito
lowering
que haya tenido
inflation.
nuestra
They
gestión en
highlighted that
corregir
poverty had
el descalabro de
reduced from
décadas,
50 to
entendemos que
31%
muchos aún no lo
under Mr.
perciban en su
Milei's
realidad
leadership.
material.
One reader, Oliver Robinson,
Quisiera
wrote
destacar
something
que,
particularly
por cómo
telling.
fue
While
configurado
there
el
is
plan de
still a
gobierno,
long way to go
los
and
años
credit
más
is
duros
not
de
yet
afrontar
available to
fueron los
everyone,
primeros.
the improvement
Y
is
por
very
eso podemos
noticeable.
afirmar,
All of
como
this in
hemos
just
hecho
2
en
years.
tantas otras
I am
veces,
currently
y
paying
pese a
off
las
my first
turbulencias
car.
coyunturales, que
Think
lo
about that
peor
last
ya
line.
pasó.
An
Es
ordinary
por eso
Argentine, for the first time in his life, could get credit to buy a car. After decades of economic chaos, normal financial life was becoming possible. That's not a statistic. That's a revolution. The economists' recognition was perhaps even more significant, given their history with Milei. In 2023, they had run a cover story calling his economic plans impossible mathematics. Their Buenos Aires correspondent had written that Milei would either moderate or collapse within 6 months. Now, 2 years later, they were listing him among the leaders who had most shaped the world. The transformation in perception had been gradual but undeniable. When Milei took office with his chainsaw rhetoric and promises to destroy the state, most international observers expected chaos. The smart money was betting on hyperinflation, social collapse, perhaps military intervention. The idea that this madman would still be in power 2 years later, let alone be celebrated by international media, seemed absurd. But the numbers told a different story. Monthly inflation, which had reached 25% when Milei took office, was now at 2.4%, the lowest in 4 years. The budget, in deficit for 14 years, was now in surplus. The peso, which everyone expected to collapse, had stabilized. Foreign reserves were growing. Investment was returning. More importantly, something had changed in the Argentine psyche. The Catholic University's Social Debt Observatory reported that poverty had indeed fallen to 36% by their more conservative measure. Still high, but the lowest since 2018. For the first time in a generation, things were getting better, not worse. The international recognition mattered for practical reasons. Every positive headline in the Financial Times or The Economist translated into basis points on Argentine bonds. Every endorsement from foreign media made it easier to attract investment. Every international award or recognition strengthened Milei's position at home. But Milei's response, Fenomeno Burial, wasn't about any of that. It was a victory lap, yes, but also a reminder. He was throwing the establishment's insult back in their faces. The local phenomenon they had mocked was now being praised by publications they revered. The opposition's response was predictable, but revealing. Christina Kirchner tweeted, "The British media that celebrates Milei is the same media that supported colonialism and exploitation. Their approval is our shame." It was a desperate attempt to turn international recognition into a negative, playing on anti-colonial sentiment. But it felt hollow. When you're reduced to attacking good news because it comes from the wrong source, you've already lost the narrative. Former President Alberto Fernandez tried a different approach. International media sees statistics. Argentines see suffering. Poverty may be down from 50% to 31%, but that still means millions of hungry children. It was a fair point, but it missed the larger story. Yes, poverty was still too high, but for the first time in decades, it was moving in the right direction. The business community's reaction was more straightforward. The head of the Buenos Aires Stock Exchange simply said, "This recognition translates directly into lower country risk and higher investment." Every international endorsement is worth millions in economic confidence. But perhaps the most interesting response came from an unexpected source. Sergio Massa, the Peronist who lost to Milei in 2023, published an op-ed that surprised everyone. "I disagree with Milei's methods and ideology, but I cannot deny his results. When international media recognizes Argentine success, we should celebrate, not criticize. Our political differences shouldn't blind us to national achievements." It was a remarkable moment. The opposition, or at least parts of it, was acknowledging Milei's success. The political consensus that had reflexively opposed everything he did was beginning to crack. The MoneyWeek ranking was particularly significant because of who voted. These weren't political pundits or academic theorists. These were people with skin in the game, investors who had to be right about global trends or lose money. Their endorsement meant something different than editorial approval. It meant they were betting real money on Milei's Argentina. One voter's comment stood out. "Milei kept his word, unlike many politicians." In a world of broken promises and political doublespeak, Milei's brutal honesty, even when wrong, was refreshing. He said he would cut spending with a chainsaw, and he did. He said he would eliminate ministries, and he did. He said he would achieve surplus, and he did. The correlation between promises and actions was almost unprecedented in modern politics. Not all the coverage was positive. The Telegraph noted that his chainsaw reduction meant fewer hospitals, police forces, and nurses. The Economist warned about social sustainability of his reforms. MoneyWeek questioned whether growth could return while maintaining austerity. These were fair criticisms, but the fact that they came alongside recognition of his achievements made them more credible. The timing of the recognition, on New Year's Day 2026, was symbolically perfect. As the world looked ahead to a new year, Argentina, perpetually looking backward, perpetually fighting old battles, suddenly seemed to be facing forward. The country that had been synonymous with decline was now being held up as an example of transformation. In his New Year's address that evening, Milei didn't mention the rankings directly, but his message was clear. 2 years ago, they said we were finished. They said inflation would destroy us. They said the people would reject our reforms. They said the world would isolate us. Today, inflation is controlled. Today, our reforms are working. Today, the world is watching and learning. The neighborhood phenomenon has become a global example. The phrase neighborhood phenomenon appeared in the speech 3 times. Each time the crowd roared. They got it. The insult had become a badge of honor. The dismissal had become a rallying cry. International influence isn't just about military might or economic size. Sometimes it's about ideas. Sometimes it's about proving that the impossible is possible. Sometimes it's about showing that a country everyone had written off can transform itself through sheer political will. Today, as 2026 begins, Milei stands as the world's second most influential leader according to British media, not because Argentina conquered anyone or discovered oil or built nuclear weapons, but because a madman with a chainsaw proved that fiscal discipline, honest money, and economic freedom could transform a nation everyone had given up on. The establishment that mocked him as a neighborhood phenomenon now puts him on global lists. The economists who said his math was impossible now study his results. The politicians who predicted his rapid collapse now copy his methods. But Milei, true to form, doesn't seem impressed by any of it. His response to being named the world's second most influential leader? 2 words that basically mean, "I told you so, you pompous fools." The revolution that started in Buenos Aires neighborhoods has gone global. The phenomenon has become a paradigm. And Javier Milei, the economist who everyone said was too crazy to govern, has become the leader everyone is watching, whether they admit it or not.